Today I want to talk to you about 10 surprising horror movies that I never expected. Some of these were just way better than I thought they were going to be, some ended up being completely different than I expected, and some I was just shocked that they even existed. My name is Daniel with the Okay, it is a really stormy night tonight. Let's try to get through this. My name is Daniel with the Cobwebs channel, and let's get started.
We're gonna get out of here, you understand me? We're gonna get out.
Mutant.
Mutant from 1984, also known as Night Shadows, two equally generic titles. When two brothers go to a small southern town for a vacation, they find most of the residents either dead or missing. After one of them goes missing himself, the other teams up with a sheriff and a beautiful school teacher to track him down among a bunch of toxic, infected zombies. Now, I am completely obsessed with 80s horror, and sometimes I feel like I've seen all of the great 80s horror films left to be seen, and then I just keep finding movies that prove me wrong. And this one you guys found for me. You guys were recommending this to me in the comments recently, and I checked it out over on Tubi, and it looks beautiful on Tubi, by the way. It looks like an HD restoration. And I was blown away that this film was not on my radar at all. It is so good. Now, it's starring Wings Hauser, which was the first thing that intrigued me about this movie, because I love Wings Hauser from movies like Vice Squad, probably most. And he's one of the two brothers, along with Lee Montgomery, who you might recognize from The Midnight Hour, and it seemed like Wings Hauser was set up as the goofy one and Lee Montgomery was more the protagonist, but no, Wings Hauser is undoubtedly the protagonist of this, and that was such a wonderful surprise. He's so great here. The great Bo Hopkins plays the sheriff, which made this film feel like it's in a cinematic universe with Sweet 16. Where's my Sweet 16 fans at? Gather up in the comments below. And Jodie Medford plays the school teacher, and she's pretty woman walking down. She's very pretty. So I loved the cast. I love the small town atmosphere. Longtime viewers of this channel know how much I'm into small town horror movies, and this is a great one. And then the monsters, the creatures that you get here are so great. Now, I said zombies earlier. Technically, they're more like a toxic vampire kind of thing because they do feed on blood, but this movie totally functions like a zombie movie. So if you go in expecting a zombie movie, you're gonna get what you expect. They look great with the pale makeup. They're so vicious, even with these weird mutations on their hands. You got some scary stuff in here. You got some intense sequences. This is just such a wonderfulully cozy 80s horror movie in all the ways that I love 80s horror films to be. And I'm so glad you guys put it on my radar, and it shocked me with how good it is.
Get in your car! There's something out there!
Watch the Splinter. Don't want to stick you.
You okay?
Don't touch it!
Splinter from 2008. When their camping plans don't work out, a young couple decides to check into a motel. On their way, they're carjacked and kidnapped by low-rent criminals who take the victims and their SUV to a nearby gas station. Along the way, they encounter an increasingly terrifying horde of parasites. Now, I guess this one just surprised me because it's a lower budget 2000s horror movie that I hadn't heard of, and it's actually really good. I would say the 2000s is my least favorite decade for horror, but I checked this one out because I just saw one post online that compared the monster effects in this to The Thing, to John Carpenter's The Thing, and I was like, okay, that's worth my time. It's really good, guys. Now, for one thing, let's start out with the monsters. Yes, it's a parasite kind of thing. Mutate people, turn them into, it's definitely not John Carpenter's The Thing level. Don't go in expecting that. But you do get some really good effects, only dampened by the fact that there's so much shaky cam. Curse you, The Bourne Identity, for ruining cinema for so long. But the reason that I love this movie as much as I did is the characters. I loved these characters. Now, the criminal characters are actually really great. There's like a great character arc going on there. And I love the young couple. Now, the woman is frequently described in the movie as a firecracker. She's very much the go, we gotta do something, we gotta act now type. And the boyfriend, Seth, is not like that. And at the beginning of the movie, he seems kind of set up as the weak one, kind of like the beta male type, as much as I hate that term, as well as alpha male. But I loved his character so much because you learn throughout the movie that, like, no, he's just the guy that will stand back, keep a cool head, think through a situation, and try to find the best way forward. And he's a character that I don't feel like I see in movies very often. So much like men in a horror scenario, they're either like the tough guy, the hero, or they are the weakling who's holding things back. And he's just like, no, let's stop. Let's think about this. And he's such a great character. And by the end of the movie, I was like, I am ride or die for Seth. Very intense, had me jumping and squirming a lot through its runtime. I really enjoyed this.
Incubus, mi affratto, vengi me.
Incubus from 1966. Now, I love folk horror. I love black and white horror. I love 60s horror in general. It's one of my favorite decades for horror. And I love William Shatner. All of those things you get in Incubus, and I had never heard of it whatsoever until it was released on Blu-ray by Arrow Video. And I went ahead and blind bought it because I was like, that just seems like the kind of thing I would love. Very happy to report it's really good. Now, this is definitely a lower budget film, but I really respected how ambitious the plot is. This is about one guy battling for his soul against demons and succubuses and an incubus. Now, a succubus is a female sex demon, and that's what you get at the beginning of the film, where one of them just decides bringing down evil men and seducing them down to hell is too easy. I want to do it with a really good guy, with a righteous guy. I want to drag him down to hell. And she decides to do that with William Shatner, who is a war hero. And then later in the film, you do get an incubus, which is a male sex demon. So you get this little black and white horror film is just filled with sex demons. Some might call this slower paced, but I loved how committed it was to a creepy atmosphere. I would put this up with The City of the Dead with Christopher Lee as one of the most dark and macabre and foggy atmosphere movies I have ever seen. William Shatner is actually quite good here, speaking a language that he didn't actually speak. That's the other surprising thing about this movie. It is in the language Esperanto, which was a man-made language created to be a universal language in Europe. And there's only like 3 movies that were ever filmed in that language. There are still certain parts of Europe where they actually do still speak this language. And most of the actors didn't speak it. They're just learning their lines phonetically. And while doing that, I actually thought William Shatner did a really great job. Maybe it actually forced him to tone it down a little bit, but he did great. What a dark, creepy, sexy folk horror movie that actually has quite a moral center to it. Incubus is really good. Smile 2 from 2024. About to embark on a new world tour, a global pop sensation begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. What an absolutely shocking movie watching experience this was for me. Now, this came out last year and was actually a big hit, and a lot of people said it was really good, but I was just resistant to watch it because I didn't think the first Smile was that good. I thought it was okay. I'm not going to bash it or anything, but I just thought it was super basic, mainstream horror. Everything about it, I felt like I'd seen a million times. And so many people were calling me out. Why haven't you seen Smile 2? Why haven't you seen it? I finally watched it earlier this week, and it's incredible. Like, I have no words, guys. It is amazing. Like, if it's not the #1 horror movie of last year, it's really close. Like, it would be very near the top of my list if I were to redo that ranking. It was brilliant to take the central concept of this franchise and put it on a pop star, because to everyone around her, her increasingly erratic and insane behavior just seems like she's a prima donna pop star on drugs, just being a huge pain to everyone around her. And she actually does have a history of substance abuse she's trying to get over. So putting somebody like that in a situation where she doesn't understand what's real, she's constantly hallucinating horrific things that this Smile demon is putting on her, is so fascinating to watch. And just technically speaking, everything about this movie is just immaculately well done. It's directed by Parker Finn, and he blew my mind watching this with just how masterfully everything is orchestrated. It starts out with this incredible one-shot sequence that is so intense. Every scare sequence is so creepy. Like, it feels like he is just going so hard to make this as creepy as possible. And look, I'm not scared by horror movies very much, and I wouldn't say I was scared by Smile 2, but I love to watch scare sequences be put together, and I love to see how a director orchestrates a scare sequence. And they're so well done here. And the violence is truly sick. And we do have a lot of horror movies these days with heavy gore, but they're fun. They're like charming and like, it's like a good time. The violence of Smile 2 is is sickening. Like, it really is. And I respected that. Like, they did it so well. Smile 2 is a big budget horror film that goes for it with gusto in every way it possibly can, and has a lead performance from Naomi Scott that may be the very best of last year.
Welcome to Purgatory. Here they live long lives, share the same desires and the same needs.
I wasn't gonna bite you.
In Sundown.
Sundown, The Vampire in Retreat from 1989, which is set in a remote desert town where vampires live peacefully by drinking synthetic blood. Trouble arises when a group of traditional vampires seek to return to their bloodthirsty ways, and a descendant of Van Helsing arrives. Definitely a movie that was not on my radar before Vestron put it out on this Blu-ray release. And I'm a collector of the Vestron line of Blu-rays, so I picked it up. And it was so much better than I expected. Now, it is directed by Anthony Hickok, so I do quite like. He also made Waxwork, and Sundown is pretty close to that level. Now, the first thing that blew me away about it is it has an amazing cast for fans of 80s B movies. Now, you got David Carradine in there as the main vampire, Deborah Foreman, who's also in Waxwork, and because of Valley Girl especially, she's one of my favorite actresses of the 80s. And Bruce Campbell is the central Van Helsing character. And look, I heard Bruce Campbell was in this, but I totally expected him to be a cameo. He cameos in so many movies. My last video, I talked about Congo, and he's in Congo for about a minute. He does that with a lot of films. And because I hadn't heard about this as like one of the Bruce Campbell movies, that's what I expected. No, Bruce Campbell is one of the main characters, so this should really be talked about a lot more as one of the great Bruce Campbell films. It's a horror comedy, western even, because it takes place in like this old west kind of town, even though it's not a period piece. It's got so many different plot threads going on, so many characters, so it's never gonna bore you. There's always something fun going on, and it's even got these half bat, half human monsters in there that are really great for fans of 80s practical effects. Sundown is a blast.
You'll shudder at the screen's most fascinating woman vampire, luring men with cold beauty.
Count Alucard is immortal. Through him, I attained immortality. Through me, you will do the same.
Son of Dracula from 1943. Carpathian Count Alucard is invited to the US by a young heiress, but her boyfriend and local officials are suspicious of the newcomer, who is interested in the virile soil of the New World. I am a huge fan of the Universal Monsters movies, and this is one of them. It's actually a sequel to the Bela Lugosi Dracula, although it doesn't have Bela Lugosi. But this is one that I put off watching for quite some time because I just thought the idea of Lon Chaney Jr. as Dracula was so ridiculous. It was such a bad idea because Dracula is Eastern European. He is a foreigner. There's like this grandiose Middle Ages kind of aspect to him. And Lon Chaney Jr. is as American as John Wayne. I mean, it's practically like casting John Wayne as Dracula. It seems like a terrible idea. But when I saw it, I was blown away that everything except Lon Chaney Jr. was amazing and is one of the best Universal Monsters movies in terms of characters, because pretty much all the Universal Monsters movies have the young lovers characters. They're boring, it's the attractive girl and guy, and they're really just there to embrace at the end of the movie while the castle burns down. They're so much more interesting than in most any other Universal Monsters film. The woman is so goth and macabre, obsessed with death, and the man is so brokenhearted by her changed behavior, her being drawn to this vampire. They're really interesting. It's a very Southern Gothic movie in atmosphere because it takes place in the South, so foggy, and you've got the swamps and the big Southern houses. It's got a really great vibe to it. And Lon Chaney Jr. is not bad. Is he miscast? Absolutely, absolutely. But he does the best he can with being who he is, and I thought he did a pretty good job. So Son of Dracula is one of the best Universal Monsters sequels, though you really might not expect it to be.
The stars are insane out here.
I should have brought the telescope.
What do you need a telescope in the city for? Unless you're like a peeping Tom or something.
Charlie! Tell me that's not a camera.
The Rental from 2020. Two couples on an oceanside getaway grow suspicious of the host of their Airbnb. Before long, what should have been a celebratory weekend trip turns into something far more sinister. So I actually saw this film when it came out back in 2020. I don't remember exactly why I watched it, but it surprised me how much I loved it. Because one, I didn't hear super great things about it, and two, it's directed by Dave Franco. Yes, that Dave Franco. Although this was the period when Jordan Peele inspired a lot of comedians to make horror horror movies. There are several examples like this. I just couldn't imagine that Dave Franco could make a great horror movie, but he did. The Rental is incredible. Now, it's got an awesome cast. It's starring Dan Stevens and Alison Brie and Jeremy Allen White, who's actually gotten bigger now because of The Bear. What impressed me the most about this is it's a film with a clear 3-act structure, and every act is a distinct genre, but they're all intense. It starts out as a relationship drama, and it's like very uncomfortable as you're figuring out what is going on with these people's relationships. Oh man, it's like very stressful watching what's going on with these people. Very much not perfect people in this film. And then Act 2 becomes a very Hitchcockian thriller, and it is so impressive how well done that is. And then in the third act, it's what the film was ultimately marketed as, a slasher. I remember when I first watched this, I watched it by myself in my basement, but I kept going upstairs to our room where my wife was reading and recounting what's going on in this movie, almost like she was watching it with me, because it just has so many shocking twists and turns. I kept going up like, okay, this just happened in this movie, and then like, okay, this crazy thing just happened. And it was honestly really fun. I really should sit her down and have her watch this eventually with me. The Rental is uncomfortable, intense, but always a blast.
You see him in the mirrors.
Can't expect me to believe that you see ghosts in your mirrors.
It's real. It's all real.
The Skeleton Key from 2005. A hospice nurse working at a spooky New Orleans plantation home finds herself entangled in a mystery of the house's dark past. So ever since this movie came out, I have memories of seeing it on shelves at video stores and just being aware of The Skeleton Key. I don't know if it was a big hit, but I saw copies of it all over the place. And it never looked any good to me because, for one thing, it's starring Kate Hudson, and you know, you see a horror movie starring Kate Hudson, you don't really expect it's going to be that much of a horror movie or really be that good. It just looked like a very mainstream PG-13 sort of attempt to make a horror movie, but not really. And it's not that. I really enjoyed it. Now, speaking of Son of Dracula being a Southern Gothic film, this is a really Southern Gothic film. It takes place in New Orleans, and just every inch of this movie is drenched in that area's past, in the legends of it, in the atmosphere of it. Very spooky mansion where this takes place. And this is ultimately a voodoo, or shall we more accurately say, hoodoo movie. It is a witch film, witchcraft. She finds all this witchcraft and hoodoo stuff in the house. I was just always so intrigued by the mystery. This film is totally a mystery, and the whole film you're just watching Kate Hudson figure stuff out. She's maybe not the best character, really, not the smartest person, and she gets way too involved in her patients' lives. Like, she really needs to back off, but she doesn't because she's in a horror movie. And watching her uncover what's going on, I was just so curious, always so curious. What the heck is happening? What is the next twist that's going to happen? So I thought The Skeleton Key was really interesting and has a killer ending that really satisfies.
A terrifying experience. It will take you a long time to forget.
Horror Rises from the Tomb from 1973. In medieval France, a warlock and his wife are executed. Hundreds of years later, a group of people discover his head buried on their property. It comes back to life and starts possessing people and using them to commit sacrifices. So this one surprised me because it's the first Paul Naschy movie I ever saw, and it ended up blowing away all of my expectations. Paul Naschy is an actor, director, writer out of Spain that just made a lot of horror movies, monster movies in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Since seeing this, I've actually done a video where I review all the movies on this box, and I've done another video where I ranked all his werewolf movies. So I'm proud to say I've covered a lot of Paul Naschy because he's become such a favorite. His movies just satisfy in all the ways you want an exploitation horror movie from this period too. And Horror Rises from the Tomb is maybe the most fun of all of them. Now, it takes a lot from Black Sunday, Mario Bava's Black Sunday, with a witch, or in this case, a warlock and his wife who are a witch, who come back after an execution. It feels kind of like a vampire movie at times. If for about 5 minutes, it's a zombie movie, and like a very traditional one. Like, all of a sudden, is this Night of the Living Dead? What am I watching? The subgenre that this fits into is murky because it's so many different things. It has got violence, it's got a talking head, it's got quite a bit of nudity. Horror Rises from the Tomb is super wacky, and I think you'd have a blast with it.
Did you know her?
No, but I saw her die.
Malignant from 2021. Madison is paralyzed by shocking visions of grisly murders, and her torment is worsened as she discovers that these waking dreams are in fact terrifying realities with a mysterious tie to her past. Malignant is maybe the most surprising movie watching experience of my entire life. Bold words, I know, but this is directed by James Wan, and I kind of went to this movie reluctantly because I like James Wan, but I'm not the biggest fan of the Conjuring movies and that whole franchise. They just feel very basic to me and not in a way that I particularly love, and I totally expected Malignant to be another Conjuring kind of movie. That's very much what the trailer sold, and Malignant is not that. It is something so dramatically different. And after watching it, I've since read about the movie and discovered James Wan's goal with this was he wanted to make a weird, bizarre 80s movie. He wanted to tribute those crazy movies that he would find on the movie store shelves at his local store, like Frank Henenlotter movies and Italian horror and Fulci and Argento and crazy stuff like that. And he succeeded. This is a bizarre, crazy, but enormously entertaining movie that I have such a blast with. I mean, I was blown away watching all the Italian horror influencing, the crash zooms and the blasting music that almost sounds like it could have been done by Goblin or something. It's not, of course, but the music is so crazy, and the twists and turns that are constantly being unraveled are so shocking. I did not predict what this movie turned out to be. And when it turned into that, I was giddy. I was bursting with joy in the theater watching this insanity, because this is exactly the kind of horror movie that I love with all of my heart. James Wan even brought his new action movie skills to this, because before this he did Furious 7 and Aquaman. There are true action sequences in here that are incredibly well done. The main villain, Gabriel, is one of my favorite horror movie villains ever at this point. And I just love that this is a fever-pitched, campy, bonkers horror movie on a big budget. Malignant rules. Before I go, I just want to give a massive thank you to my patrons who truly make this channel possible, with a special shout out to Ted's Jam, Zombies Ate My Arm, and Scott Oldershaw. You guys absolutely rule. So that's my list, but what are some horror movies that really surprised you? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, check out my last video I did on surprising horror movies. That was a ton of fun to do as well as this playlist of a lot of my horror movie recommendation lists. If you haven't yet, I would certainly appreciate a like and a subscribe. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to enjoy yourselves today, have some fun, and I'll see you next time. Bye.